You might have seen my picture in the keynote by Utpal Betai. So you all know, like, I'm just got married. Yeah, beside that, this is my sixth, no, sorry, maybe a seventh DevFest in this year, and this is the last one. And obviously, Putana Gare to Rambuj Pade, right? So, yep. And as you all know, my name is Bhavik Makwana, not Bharat Makwana. Someone might get confused, but I'm the Bhavik Makwana. And all everyone must be aware, like, what you have to do. You have to scan this QR, whatever you are getting, just click on this buttons or anything else. And if it is asking for a follow or something like that, you have to do it, right? If you are done with it, I'll just move to the next slide. So everyone comfortable with the Gujarati, Hindi, English? Gujarati, Hindi, Gujarati. Okay. Bawa English? કાઠિયાવાડી મને નહીં આવડે. હું મેહોણાનો છું. Okay, હેડો તારો ચાલુ કરીએ. Okay, so yeah, as you all know, like, I'll be speaking about understanding widgets in Flutter. You must be, all of you are using Flutter in your day-to-day life. Anyone like, wants to raise your hand who is using Flutter in your day-to-day life? Anyone using Android? Okay, many of you are using Flutter. You are building production level applications? Yes, right? Okay, yeah. So we'll be going to, it's not going to be a basic introduction like what's widget. We'll be going to do a deep dive into widgets. Oh, sorry. Okay, I might you might not be like getting that memes vibes from my talks. It's going to be a more on a serious side. Like, I'll be mostly talking about code and the structure about Flutter, architecture about Flutter, how it works. So you'll be seeing less memes. You already have a dose of really good memes from the Pawn Stock. You might have heard about some bits from the Pawn Stock, so you have to keep it in mind. It's kind of in a sync. It's not about Web3, but yeah, some of the words, it's kind of in a sync. So first of all, anyone can explain? Everything is a widget. Okay. Yeah, good. Yeah, okay, yeah. Anyone want to add something more? Yeah. It's more for a UI, yeah. But it's not a function. Anyone else? Okay. Okay. Yeah. So it's not widget. You are talking about elements, but not widget. What is widget? It's kind of a Lego blocks, right? You're going to add it on top of any other widget. Like, you mostly wrap another widget on top of one more widget, right? Like wrapping a column on a stack, wrapping a card on a stack UI, or anything else. You can just mismatch the widget and create anything you want, like as we do in a Lego. If someone have tried creating a Lego, so that's what it is about. And anyone has an idea about state, like how it works in Flutter? If I want to elaborate, it's a kind of a state, like it's an application state. And we have a build method in Flutter, right? So whenever state changes, it is going to call the build method once again. So when we call in set method, right, it is going to call the build method again, and the UI will be updating, right? So that's how actually the UI this equation works. Now we are going to do a small widget in unboxing for our talk. Like, I'm going to give you an example of we can determine how this particular widget is kind of rendered on the our screen, or particular UI, how it is being rendered. So we got one card over here. If you want, you can scan it. This idea kind of taken from the Pawn Stock only, which I have attended a long back. in this DevFest season only. Yeah, so it's kind of a similar concept, a bit different UI with different UI. So we are going to check out this UI. It contains how many widgets. Can anyone want to elaborate what kind of widget this UI contains? Can anyone want to say about it? बोलो लिया हमारे तो कहता था बता फ्लटर करे जा बोलो हाँ ओके 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 पोजीशन widget, nice one. Anything else? Text widget, list, column. Yeah, you were like almost like nearby. Yeah, then yeah, pretty much it, right? Like let's break it out once again. So this one is a stack widget, entire widget, which is my main widget, parent widget, we can say that. Then it contains a position widget inside stack widget. So stack contains a list of widgets like children's. So it contains a position widget first. The position widget contains a container. It's not a circular image at the moment, but I have added a container widget, and that widget contains an image, which is my avatar. Then there is one more widget, which is called card. So there's like I'm using container as well as a card widget over here. So it's a part of stack, right? And card contains a column, right? Someone over here mentioned about it. Card contains a column and it contains image, which is a barcode, QR code. You have to scan it and give a review about my talk. Then there is a text widget, right? Understandable? Easy? You got the idea? Now let's see how the widget looks like when actually it is being rendered in the Flutter side. Not something that we are going to take a look at always when we are creating a UI using a Flutter. So we got root widget stack, right? Then we contain a card position. Card contain a column widget. It contains an image and text. And position contains a container and a image widget. Every widget has its own build methods, right? Right? You are getting it? Every widget contains its own build methods, using which you are going to render it. Internally, it does contains a build method, right? Now, talking about, I'm actually using a lots of widgets. So someone pointed it out over here. Like everything is a widget over in Flutter, right? Am I right? As I'm like, sakni nazar the kem jo Actually, it is right, but wrong at the same time. Maybe not. Pawan talked about immutable widget. If you have heard his talk, very carefully, at the end, he talked about immutable widget. A widget is an immutable description of an user interface, right? So widget is actually immutable. You can't change it, right? So when you are doing a set, you are actually not changing a like that particular widget in a way. Like the widget is actually not being changed. It does not know when to change, or it does not hold any kind of technically any kind of state. We are not talking about stateful widget at the moment, just a widget. Okay, so it does not know it. It's just immutable. You can't change it. It is going to be the same when you are going to write it once, right? So that's what and it's a description of a UI. Whatever you want to write, you want to write a column. It's just a column. You can't change it, right? Like that way. So how it just rendered it, and how we can that set state and all things are working in under the hood in Flutter. So let's see about it. So we are mainly going to focus on the framework part over here. So this is the architecture, basic architecture of Flutter, how it works in under the hood. Like framework and Dart is the layer actually we access. Then there is an engine, C++. Engine is built using these C and C++ libraries, and then embedder. If you want to do some platform specific stuff, then you have to use embedded systems like a platform specific. We are mainly going to focus on framework. It contains a material and Kubernetes widget, then normal widgets, then it contains rendering part, and at the end foundation. Got it? And also like Flutter has a three types of trees. When we talk about trees, it's just not a widget tree. It contains an element tree and a render object tree. It's just not a widget tree. So when I have shown you a widget tree earlier, right? It contains a stack, then column, and many more things, right? So it's just not a widget tree when Flutter actually start rendering your UI for you. It's under the hood. It also contains the element tree and render object tree. Let's talk about it. So we have a widget tree over here. It contains a configuration of widgets. So what it is, and render object contains a paint, like a painting information, when to paint or how to paint and so on. Okay, yeah. So widget contains the properties, like passing a properties in a container, like height, width, color, decoration, and many more things. A clip, like anti-alias or not, and many more things. So these are the public APIs you're going to use a widget. And then there is a render object. Paint, it knows like how to use a size, how to paint the particular widget, whatever properties you are giving to the this render object, how to paint it, then how to lay out the children, and then how to listen for input, like if you are doing any gesture detections, so how to do it, how to check for a hit test. So that is maintained by the render object. But how these two layers communicate between each other, so that's where the element tree comes in a picture. So it mainly for the lifecycle management, and it manages the reference of the particular widget in a tree, and it contains it represented a widget in particular tree. Like it is going to create a tree of element, and it will be it will check for, okay, yeah, suppose this container is part of this tree, and it will hold a reference for that tree. So whenever you are going to change this particular widget, you are actually not changing that widget. Actually, you are actually changing some values in a element tree. Then element tree ask render object tree to like shake it, if you know about tree shaking. So you're going to like, it's just going to shake that tree and make some changes, and going to return the value from the render object to the widget. So that's where the element tree actually comes in the picture. There are two types of elements mainly. One is a component element, which means there will be a more than one element contains in that particular element tree. Then there is a render object elements. There is like it's again an element. It might sound like render object tree only, but it's just an element. It means like you are going to have only one element within that element tree. So within for that particular widget. So that's how it's going to work. So there are two types of widget. Sorry, element. So you do know about this UI, right? Hope you have scanned it. And this was the kind of a tree structure, widget tree structure was for that. We are going to focus about this card. It contains a card, column, image, and text. We are going to create element tree for this thing, this card, this layout, and we are also going to create a render object tree for this like this particular widget. So it contains a widget tree, a card. A card is our main widget in a way, and it contains a stateless element. So card is not going to change. So it is elementary going to create a stateless element for that particular widget. In our case, card. Then it's going to create a render decorated box. So card actually it is a container inside the Flutter framework. Right, it's actually a container, so it's going to have some decorative property as well. So it's going to create a render decorated box for us. It contains a column. It's again a stateless element, and it is going to give us a render flex as a render object tree. Then there is a image widget. Now image widget is kind of a stateful element, and it's going to give us a render object as a render image. Can anyone try to explain why it is a stateful element and not a stateless element like any other widget element tree? Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Right answer. Yeah. So we have to wait for it. Like, okay, yeah. If you are passing an asset or from network as well, we have to wait for that particular image to load. It's always going to take some millisecond of time. So you have to wait for it. Then you have to update the state within the widget. So image is actually a stateful widget inside a Flutter framework. So it is going to create a stateful element for that particular widget and render image. Then there is a text. It is going to a stateless element. It does not hold any state at the moment, so it's just going to be a stateless element, and it is going to create a render paragraph as a render object. So if you are using rich text or any other, let's say, text related, text spanning, maybe a rich text is a text spanning. So it is always going to use a render paragraph as a render object. Then let's talk about inspector. Anyone ever tried to use inspector? Okay. Have you ever actually felt that you are actually using it the right way, or like actually it is helping you to make your application much more performance handy kind of way? Ever used it like that way, or it's just you have used it for R&D maybe? Okay. So we'll check about that in next slides. But no more like slides. Actually, we'll be doing a live coding. Not exactly a live coding. I have a pre-built that UI. We'll be checking that UI and how that inspector thing works in real time. So I have already this UI visible over here. This is the code. Again, you have to scan it. And you have to give a rating. Okay, yeah, so this contains this is the already running project. So if you go to the run, I'm a JetBrains product lover. If you haven't done the tweet yet, you should. Okay, so I'm a big time JetBrains products lover. So I'm on this open Dart tools, this icon. When we click on it, it's going to open this UI for us in a Chrome or whatever browser you want to use it in. It is going to give us some inspector tools over here. It contains a Flutter inspector, performance, CPU profiling, memory, debugger, network, logging, app size, and many more things. Let's click on the Flutter inspector and then select widget mode. I hope it is visible. Is it? Should I zoom in? Good. Yeah. Okay. Let's click on select widget mode. If let's go see, it is kind of actually selecting a card. If I click on this header part, like my avatar, it is actually creating a selecting a image, a container if it is there. Then there is a icon as well. Okay, I have to click on it again. Rich text or icon. It is not actually. It is. Okay, yeah. Thank you. So this is, it contains a padding as well. That particular widget. If I go over here, it is not showing me a widget tree. Let me reload it. I'm going to stop it and I'm going to create it again. Okay, yeah, nice. Even if I can select it over here as well. I'm going to select a card. It will be selected over here. I'm going to select a text. If I go over here, it will be selected. Right? Sometimes you might face a issue related to padding. Some maybe your text is kind of cropping, but you have so many layers of UI, you might not be able to identify exact UI. You can actually jump onto the code as well directly from here. I'm forgetting the shortcut, but yeah, you can do that as well. So it will just going to that select a padding for us. Okay, yeah, it is also highlighting over here as well. Suppose I'm selecting a text. See, it will highlight selecting my text over here. The cursor will be go to the text. Let me try go to the icon actually. See, the icon is kind of selected and the cursor is over there. So that's why you'll be able to identify the exact source of particular widget, where it is kind of being rendered and from where it is being rendered in a screen. So that's how actually you can use this widget tree in your while developing your Flutter application. So if you want to find out any bugs or anything else, you can do it. It also, so this one is a layout explorer. It also contains a widget details tree. So it contains many data. Like I'm selecting an icon over here, so it contains icon data. So if you see, currently the icon is a broken heart. Okay, if you are not going to like my session, then this will be the my heart maybe. Okay, it contains a size which is kind of null. I'm not passing it specifically any size, so it is taking a default size at the moment. So it's currently a null. Color is kind of default only, so it's null. Then there is a dependency. Under the whole icon also uses a semantics for the accessibility purposes. So that is also, that particular widget is also there. Then internally it uses a size box to give a specific fixed height and width to that particular widget, sorry, to the icon, right? So how it is actually being rendered like in a 24 size. So because Flutter is actually doing that stuff over here internally that we are not aware of, right? So that's how actually look into it. Sometime you might have seen it like, okay, it's not properly sized or something like that. You might have faced this idea. So at that time this inspector can help you a lot. Then there is a alignment center widget is being currently used. Then many more stuff. If rich text is kind of being used as well internally, I'm not using it at all, right? So that's how you can do it. See, there is a render object as well, which is a render constraint box. The render constraint box over here is for the size box. So whatever the size box I'm using, the render object is created using in a render object tree. Render constraint box is a part of that rendered object tree. So this is the render object for your. So this is how actually can identify what is the actual render object tree for your particular widget. Then there is a slow animation as well. I don't have any animation over here at the moment or any scrolling effect. If there is any, it will just slow down that particular effect. Then guidelines. If there are see, I'm drawing this UI in a vertical manner. So if you see, it is showing me an arrow over here as well, a light shade yellow color. I'm actually drawing it in a vertical manner. So it is actually showing me, okay, yeah, if you might not have idea about, okay, how this maybe you are seeing a page view, you might not have idea it is actually being rendered on the vertical manner or horizontal. So that's how you can actually identify this stuff. If you are facing any issues related to that render box, out of bounds, something like that, at that time it can help you out. Then there is a show baseline button as well. It is going to show you a baseline for your tags. So if you see over here, I'm not sure if it is visible. It is not being zoomed as well, but you are seeing in my name Bhavik Makwana, you are seeing a thin line of green, like green color. So that is actually showing me a baseline of that particular tags. So if you are having any other tags, let me try adding one more in a column only, let's say. Okay, yeah. Should I add a padding? See, it is also showing a baseline green, a thin baseline. Let me try adding a theme property. Maybe this will work. You are seeing a thin green color line, GDG, below the GDG. So it is going to show you that thin line. So how in a practical scenario, how it is going to help you? So maybe you want to align some data to the bottom of your tags, right? You might not be aware, okay, yeah, it is actually in a bottom or not, at the baseline of particular tags or not. Suppose you want to align your icon to the baseline of that particular tags. So how are you going to do it? You don't have idea actually what's the baseline of particular tags. So that's how actually you can use this inspector tool and you can get the idea about it. Then there is a highlight repaint. Highlight repaints mainly is for like how many times your UI is actually being rebuilt again and again. So you are seeing a blue line box inside my emulator. If you are seeing it, let me disable this thing first. Okay, you are seeing this blue line at the edges of my emulator. If I'm going to hot reload continue again and again, it is going to change the color. See, it is now dark blue. It is really blue, then it is going to change to the red maybe. It's kind of a magenta or purple now. There is one more way, you can actually see the repaint rainbow, like it is going to show you a rainbow lines. So it is actually works for a profile mode. So you have to run it in a real device and profile mode. So currently it's a emulator and debug mode, so I won't be able to show you that. So that's how it's still, that repaint, highlight repaints work. So it is actually showing us like how many times actually, your UI is particular UI is being rendered. Then if you have any high, oversized images, like which is kind of, can cause some performances related issues, that's where you can, use this this tool to identify that images. Currently we don't have any, so yeah, I'll just simply remove these tags at the moment. We don't need it. Okay, so that's how this thing works. Other than that, there is a performance thing over here. So it contains a frame time. So how many milliseconds is actually taking to render this UI. If it is jank, so you'll be seeing this light shade orange color, and if the shader compilation, like your that time is kind of for the rendering that particular UI is being very high. So it will be shown in a red color. And you will be able to find out that particular widget, and you can actually try to refactor that widget. So that's how actually, suppose you might have added up so many images in a list view, and without lazy loading maybe, and without cache network image maybe, it will going to take a lots of time and lots of rendering time as well. So your shader time at that time and the jank time as well go high. So you'll be able to find out, okay, yeah, I have to work upon this my image thing. I have to make sure that it takes a lot lesser time for rendering, or maybe you have to cache it some way or either way, like using a cache network image or any other way. Then you can get use of this thing. Again, to get the exact idea about that performance data, I have to run that application in a profile mode in a real device, which I don't have access to at the moment. So that's how but you will be able to once, if you are building any production level application, just try building it in a profile mode. You just, so we write Flutter build APK or anything else, dash release or dash debug, right? You just have to add a dash profile, and you will be able to get this data very accurately. Then CPU profiler, that is again I have to I'll start recording it. It's going to give me a CPU data, like how many like that CPU my application actually consuming. Again, it's sorry, but it required a profile mode. Then if there are memory related issues, if there is any memory hack, what we call leaks is happening, right? So that you can identify over here. Then debugger, if you see entire code is over here, you can put on a debugger. Okay, it's not coming up. Breakpoint. So you have to add a breakpoints at your code, then or you can actually add a debug print as well. Something it's called like debug something. So you can actually add that particular thing in your code, and you will be access debugger over here as well. If you are using Android Studio or IntelliJ, you must be using your default debugger right over here, which is really handy. You just add debug point over here and just wait for that debugger to come over here and just see if any issues over here, or just like kill it, or maybe just break it. So that's how you can use debugger to identify the particular issue. Suppose you don't know like where the null exception is actually happening, right? So like it is just giving us a idea, like in this particular class it is kind of having a null exception, but you don't know NPE, but we don't know where actually it is happening. So you can just put on the suppose we might know that it is happening in this particular method which has a list of data, and we are not assigning data properly. So you can just put on the debugger over there over here, and like this, and just wait for that when you run your application in a debug mode, you have to wait for that particular debugger to come over there. And when you are done with it, like the debugger will tell you, will give you the data, and then you will be able to get the data, like if the that particular variable or that list has actually a data or not, if it is empty or not, how many data actually it contains, entire object it can actually you can get it from here over there. Then there is a network calls over here as well. You want to analyze your network calls. If you are not using any third-party libraries, maybe like Firebase performance analyzers, right? If you are not using some kind of that thing as well, you can actually use this network from over here as well to identify your network calls, how many times it's actually taking, how much time actually taking to for a get call, post call, sending a particular MIME type data as well. So that's why you can use this network. Then logging is obviously for this logging related stuff, if you want to log the data. And if you have ever tried to build the application, if you are an Android developer, you might have idea about this app size thing. It is come in default in a Android Studio, right? So this is exactly a similar thing. You have to upload your file over here, and you just compare it with the a different module, like if it is already there over here. So we have to import two files, APK in our case, or AOT file, and then you can compare what file is like bigger, or what file is smaller, and why actually it is kind of being changed, like because of which file, or because of which assets it's actually got changed. Like if the APK size is a bit higher now, it happened with my case as well. I'm working at multiple, and we started implementing a new UI. So it contains a few GIFs initially. So earlier we used to generate AAV files. I hope you all know about AAV files. So it started suddenly it started creating the AAV file on more higher sizes. Earlier it used to be around 10 MB or 12 MB. Now it went to the 24 size or something like that. Like I was kind of bit worried why it is kind of increased that much. So I was kind of worried, and then I got to know about this GIF related stuff. Okay, these GIFs are actually kind of heavy, and because of that it's creating a AB size higher in a size. So that's where we started using a live animation instead. So we ported to that animation. So that's how actually you can identify that problem and work upon a solution. So that's the thing. That's how you're gonna use these dev tools or inspector tools for making sure that you're using your best practices to build your Flutter application. I hope you all got this thing. Right now, can you all guess the next topic about my session? Probably a last topic. If you have read the description of my talk. No. बाहर मिलता हूँ. Okay, so it's about life cycle of a widgets. We talked about widget tree, element tree, and a render object tree, right? Now, life cycle of a widget. Element contains, actually manages the life cycle of that particular widget. So, if you have seen the code in my application as well, so it had one heart button, like heart icon, right? So when I accidentally click on it, it actually changed the color to the red. So how actually that things works, and how we can actually do that stuff. We are going to understand that thing. But before that, can anyone tell me that what type of widget Flutter has? Okay, nice. Okay, else this talk is not for you. Definitely not for you. Yeah. So we are going to talk about stateless widget cycle. So it contains constructor and a build context. So it does not hold any state, and you're not going to change it programmatically or by any user interactions, right? You can change it like a hot reload by doing a hot reload, but not that way. So you have to pass some data to the constructor as a property. Like suppose I'm using a tags, so I'm passing a data like data as a tags particular string in the tags widget. So it's a stateless widget. It does not contain any state. It's just going to run the build method, going to create a context, and then just going to render that particular text using a render object. Now there is a stateful widget lifecycle as well. It is again almost similar. It contains the constructor, and it contains one more method called create state. You must have seen this method while writing a stateful widget, or just while creating a just click on alter and return, or alter and that enter command. You are just going to change that stateless widget to stateful widget. But ever tried, have you ever tried going to that, how this create state actually we get in that particular class? Ever tried to get that, get that thing? Ever tried that? Ever tried to, going to the definition of that particular widget or a state class, right? So it's just a method that's what we call a stateful widget. And on top of that stateful widget, we are going to create a state. Now let's see so actually stateful widget has that only life cycle, like widget, sorry, constructor and a create state method. That create state method comes from the state class. So we are going to see a state object lifecycle. It contains a build context, right? So build context is a base of anything you are working with Flutter. So if you want to get the size of it, height, width, maybe a color, a text theme maybe, right? You can get it using a build context, right? So whenever that state class is kind of being called, it is going to assign a build context. Then you must have used this mounted is equal to true, right? Okay, सब कुछ फट रहा है, कहीं तो फाटा जाए. If mounted મૂકો સ્ટેક ઓવરફ્લોમાં સોલ્યુશન હશે. ઓકે, if mounted મૂકો ચાલવા લાગશે થોડી વાર પછી, રાઈટ? કોઈકે તો યુઝ કર્યું હશે આવો પેચ. આ પેચ છે કાઇન્ડ ઓફ. ઓકે, so જ્યારે when the build context is being assigned, it is going to mount after build context is after assigning a build context, it is going to make this mounted is equal to true. So now you are able to access the if you have used provider of way back, you might have faced this issue. If you try to assign the build context in any state, you might not get it. You might just face an error. So at the time you have to check for if mounted or not, and then you have to do some stuff. So that's why actually mounted is equal to true. You have to use it. Then it is going to call the init state method for you. So init state is a first method which is going to get called after the build context is assigned, and over there you can access the properties, widget.properties. I mean the widget.name, widget.color. You are using that properties like that, right? So that's how you can access the properties of that particular widget.properties, using a widget.properties. Then it is going to call the did dependency widget, a method. You might have used this as well in your Flutter applications. It is called soon after init state. So like suppose you want to get the actual context. So at that time your widget actually started rendering it. So you might get the exact context from that did chain dependency. It might get called multiple times as well. Suppose you are refreshing your UI at that time as well. It is going to change it is also going to get called. Then it is going to make the dirt is equal to true, which means the build method is called after the did chain dependency got called. It is going to mark your build method as a true, dirty is equal to true, and then going to run the build method where actually we are going to write all the widget stuff, like our UI stuff, right? That's where we write all all our UI things in a build method. So it is going to mark dirty is equal to true. So you might have got one more error if you try suppose one more UI is kind of being rendered, and if you hit the set state at the same time, you might got this issue like this particular widget is dirty is equal to true. You have to wait for that particular widget to build. If the build is complete, and you have to call that set state method afterwards. So you might have got that error in your project. So that's how because of this dirty is equal to true, you got that error mostly, because you can't actually call the set while the actual build is being rendered. Then there is two more widget. So after build is completed, it is going to mark that dirty is equal to false. Okay, now you can call the set method, and you can perform many more things as you want. Then if you call the set state, it is going to change the set. Again, it is going to create dirty is equal to true. It is going to mark dirty is equal to true. So you can't again call the set state same time. Then it is going to make it false. So that's how it works. And then there is one more method called did update widget. It is going to give us an old widget and a new widget. New widget means widget.properties. You have seen it in a previous slide as well, right? Widget.properties. We were accessing it in a init state. You can access it everywhere, like in a build method as well. I mean, so when this did update widget is getting called, it is going to give us an old widget and a new widget. So suppose I'm externally suppose I'm using my custom button, and I want to do some, and it's a stateful widget. I want to perform. There is one more state within a there is a one more particular boolean or something like that in particular custom, and I want to update that boolean externally. You won't be able to do it, but did update will have old widget data and a new widget data. So you can pass new widget data. It will have a reference of old widget data as well. You can compare it and do perform certain actions over there as well. Suppose like I had one issue, like I was creating my calendar UI, a custom calendar UI. So I was looking into the code of native Flutter calendar UI, how it actually works. And I was way back in 2019 or 2020. Yeah, so I was kind of unaware like how it is actually that internally how it is changing that particular boolean or particular variable. So I got to know about did update widget, and it helped me a lot. Suppose I'm creating a custom widgets, it does help me a lot to change the internal state of a particular widget from external properties. Then obviously deactivate. So when the widget is kind of being done, you have to deactivate. Like it will internally goes into a deactivate mode. Then dispose. If you are done with that particular widget, you have to dispose the properties of it or the values of that particular widget from the dispose method, and the mounted will be your false. So now you like that mounted thing where we have used earlier, it will be false. You won't be able to you might not be able to use that particular widget when it is being disposed. Again, we have talked about this UI, right? It contains one label and a heart. It's a text and a heart icon, a broken heart icon. When user taps on it, we are going to change the color and the heart icon. There is a one state or a boolean is equal to false. It contains a build method, and build method contains a row. So it's a technically row. A Bhavik Makwana is a label and an icon. We are going to focus on an icon. Icon contains a is like boolean, which I have defined earlier. What I'm doing, if icon is like true, like so the favorite icon, and else heartbroken icon, and I'm also changing the color of it in the next line. And when I click on press, I'm going to call a set state, and when is like equal to not is like if it is a like, make it false, or if it is true false, false true, vice versa. So it is going to do a stuff like that, and when I click on it, it is going to change the state of it. So how actually that widget tree or element tree going to help us and going to render that particular for us. It is not the widget tree that is going to mutate. It is the element tree which is going to tell us that okay, to the our widget, okay, yeah, you have to mutate and show the new UI. So we are going to focus on the icon button. Okay, went too fast. Okay, yeah, so we have icon over here in a circular heartbroken. So our main widget is a card. I have to change it. Earlier it used to be a stateless widget. I've changed it internally a stateful widget. Okay, now my entire card is a stateful widget because I have to call the set method, right? Then it is going to create a stateful element for it because now it is a stateful widget, and that contains a one state is equal to currently false, right? Then there is a one icon which is a stateless element, a stateless widget. It does not hold any state. It's just going to wait for that stateful element to get updated. That is is equal to false. So when user clicks on that particular like button, it is going to change that particular state. So stateful element going to change the state of that is equal to true. Then it is going to give that value to the stateless element, and stateless element going to mark that dirty is equal to true. We have talked about dirty, right, earlier. So it is going to mark that dirty as a true, and that widget still does not have an idea about it until that dirty becomes false. So it does not have an idea about it. It internally changes the state of it. That boolean is changed, but it is not being rendered on the UI. After some time, like in a few seconds, okay, it is going to that icon will be updated when the dirty is equal to becomes a false, and you will be seeing a new updated UI. So it's not actually a widget which is going to change the state. It is the element tree which is going to change the state, going to take the data from the render object and showing back to the widget tree. So that's how actually the Flutter framework internally works. So yeah, that's it from my end. These are the key points from my slides. Like Flutter maintains three trees in parallel: widget, element, and render object tree. Right? It contains the app is performed because a Flutter app is performed because it maintains a structure and only updates a widget. So Flutter only updates that widget which is kind of needs redrawing. Not it actually follows the tree shaking approach, right? So it's just going to update that particular widget only in a widget tree. And the Flutter inspector, a useful tool to debug, experiment, and inspect a widget. Then you can start creating by stateless widget, and if you want, you can move to the stateful widgets. Yeah, and these are some next things, like if you want to go deep dive in Flutter widgets, you can follow these guidelines, and you can make sure that you are if you want to learn more stuff about it. So yeah. We have barely a 3 minute maybe, but we can wrap it up and take our questions outside as well. But if you have any questions, a few questions, maybe we can take it. Any questions? I'm actually not pointing a gun, so no worries about that part. I don't have any. Okay, cool. Sorted. का तो બધું ઉપરથી ગયું, का તો બધાને બધું આવડે છે. This one? Okay, you do know what you have to do, right? The handle is Bhavik Makwana everywhere, be it Instagram, Twitter, or anything else. Okay, thank you so much, everyone.
So much. I would like to give you this gift on behalf of GDG Ahmedabad.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.